Hey, what's up everybody? Wanted to do a tutorial video here today on how to set up a local email server. Now if you're like me, what you want to do is you want to set up an email server that is completely offline, has no connection to any sort of online mail of any kind. You just want to have email set up between a couple of computers in a centralized local location or building or whatever the case may be, where you do not necessarily need to connect to the internet, or you are forbidden from connecting to the internet in my case, but you still want to have the use of email. For example, if you want to be sending small files from computer to computer without the need for network attached storage, when it's less than a megabyte in size, it's not necessary, and when you don't want to have to carry around data on a flash drive, you can just shoot files back and forth or shoot information back and forth between machines easily in the same building. And so a small local mail server is good for that. So I'm going to show you how to set this up. Now what we're going to be using is a piece of software called hMailServer, and this software is completely free. It works on any version of Windows, back to at least XP, if not 2000. I'm on Windows XP here because that's what the CNC machines run. It works just the same on Windows 7 or Windows 10. It doesn't really matter what the OS is, it's all basically the same that I'm going to show you here. And it's a very simple software to set up. I'll have a link for it in the description. Just download it, runs a standard install. There's no need to do anything special there. I've already installed it. All you need to do is provide an administrator password, which we will use to log in to the server and configure it. So just have that password saved, and then once the software is installed, you will need, if you're on XP at least, you will need the .NET Framework 2.0, which I will also have a link for in the description. But once you have it installed, it just installs itself as a standard Windows service. So if we come here to the Run box and we type in services.msc, you can see here hMailServer, and the service is already started, and you can see where the executable is. Now it does add a start menu entry if you ever want to stop the service. You can easily do so, and it has obviously easy uninstall, and this administrator software is where we will configure everything. Now before we do that though, I'm just doing this on a local host machine. I'm going to have this video broken up into chapters so you can skip around. There will be a couple things that I'll do just for kind of testing purposes. If you're doing debugging and stuff like that and you want to test this out on just a singular machine to start with, like what I'm doing, so you can just skip around. But the first thing that you want to do if you're hosting this on a real system, if you're in a LAN environment, you can either disable your firewall altogether if you don't need it. If it's not completely isolated from the outside world, you don't actually need a firewall. But if you do want to keep the Windows Firewall enabled, there is a chance that you'll have to enable the ports that you're going to be using for the mail server. Now this one's a little different between Windows XP and 7 and 10. On Windows 7 and 10 you get a MMC type snap-in for the Windows Firewall configuration. I'll have in the description how to get to it, but once you're in that, it just says on the sidebar of inbound rules, there's a new rule, and then it will bring you to the same exact menu that I'm going to show you. It's just a slightly different location. Here in the Windows Firewall, there's exceptions, and then add port is what you'll want to do for the rule. And then here you can give it whatever name you want. Like here, if you just give it SMTP, and then we'll do, say, port 25. For TCP, you can do UDP as well, but definitely you have to have TCP. It doesn't matter if you do both. You can also change the scope. Any computer, custom list of IPs, my network, subnet only. Just leave it on any computer, and then you will add that. I don't need it, so I'll just delete it, but you will want to make sure that all of the ports are in this exception that you're going to use if it's being blocked. If it doesn't block it, I don't know if it will by default. I know that mine, the firewall, is just disabled, but common ports are like 110, 995, 993, 143, ports like that, which you'll see in the program what ports, and you can change the ports as well. but you can also just turn the firewall off, but that's up to you. And then now we'll actually get into configuring the program. So we'll come to the administrator. You can see here by default it just gives you localhost. Automatically connect on startup, I would recommend setting that there. I'm not going to, but just check that. And now we can click edit, and the password ask when connecting or save password. You can also change the name or the username of the account that is used for administrating. I'll just leave it as that, and then ask when connecting, I'll just leave it as that as well. So connect, and then it will want you to enter your password, and then you get here. Now the first thing that you'll want to do is add a domain. Since we're offline, it does not have to be a real domain that you have purchased online. You can just put anything in. In this case, I'll just do benarlego.net. A lot of the stuff in here is not really that useful for us. There's a lot of options. You can add a signature, kind of like what an antivirus would do, where they append their signature to your emails by default. But we'll just have that benarlego.net, and then you can see it appears in this domains and populates automatically. And aliases are options, distribution lists, but we want accounts here. And again, you can see you can add, edit, remove. So we'll add an account, and then you get your email address here. So I'll just do my name, and then the password, I'll just use the same password as the host. Obviously, you'd probably want to give your users their own passwords. And there's all sorts of other options, forwarding to a different address. You can add a signature, rules, Active Directory. I mean, a lot of stuff that we aren't going to use, really. Auto reply. It's very flexible, and you can also change the administration level, but for here we just want that. So we'll save that, and there's our account, and it does show the last login time here as well. And now with this account, we are good to log in, but we have to set up the actual connection. And to do that, here in settings, there's a couple things. Usually you want to go straight for advanced, but you can also take a look at protocols. Here, there's SMTP. Again, there's a lot of options. Now, this is where it matters here. Delivery of email. Now, I disabled this use start TLS setting because I don't have that security enabled on my system. And then bind to local IP address. Now, this is basically, you can put this as just 0.0.0.0, which is what I'll do. But in most circumstances, you want it to be the IP address of the host, the server computer. If they're all connected to the same computer, of course, then you put that there. The 0.0.0.0 will work just fine as well. So that makes it simple enough. And then POP3 and IMAP you can leave alone, unless you have, for some reason, some need to do so. And then we'll go to advanced and IP ranges. Now, since we're not connected to the internet, we don't need to change that one at all. You can change the name of it here, and then lower IP and upper IP are set to localhost. Now, probably what you want to do for this, because of the IPs of your different machines that will connect to this, what I do personally, since we're completely offline, it does not matter what the IPs are that are connecting. I will put that 4 zeros again, and then in the upper IP, I'll put 255, 255, 255, 255. Just like that, and then never set to expire. That way, all IPs, no matter what the IP number is, it will be allowed to see it, and it will work. And then I disable SMTP authentication. You can do that as well if you want to. Again, that's up to you to leave that on, depending on what security settings you want. I don't care about the security because I know that these are completely isolated from the outside world. And so basically that's all there is to that. But if you come into internet, of course, you can do the same thing if you wish. That's what it's configured for by default. And then TCP and IP ports, we want to come here. And there are 4 different ones here. And you can see the ports. So you can change these. These are just the standard ports. The only time you'd change this is if you have a conflict. If you have 2 things on the same port, then you would want to change this to reflect a different port, and then you'd want to again go into your firewall and on your host machine and change it so that it listens on the new port. So in my case, this is where, if you want to skip past this, if you have it set up already in a LAN, just skip to the next chapter. But I want to show you how you can get an IP address on a completely disconnected computer if you just want to have it set up by itself for archival or self-relay purposes. You need an IP address. If you come to your command prompt and you type in ipconfig, you can see I have that Ethernet connector. It's disconnected. So I have no IP address on this machine to bind to. I have nothing on this computer. And there is a solution for this. We can create a false network just for the purpose of getting an IP address to test. Again, this is more for debugging than actually using it in a LAN environment. I just wanted to show it though. This is the other part that's a little different on Windows 7 and 10. What you want to do in Windows 7 is go to your My Computer, your properties, or just type in the Start menu Device Manager, then go to Hardware Device Manager, and then click on the network adapters, and here under Action there should be like an add, I think it's Add Legacy Hardware, and then you will get again the same dialog box that I'm about to show here. But in Windows XP, it's the Control Panel, Add Hardware, and the same thing. And it will search, and then yes, I have already connected the hardware, and then add a new hardware device at the very bottom. Install the hardware that I manually select from a list. Network adapters. And then it will populate. Manufacturer is Microsoft. Microsoft Loopback Adapter. This is what we want right here. And click Next. And finish. And now that we have a adapter installed, we can continue on with the next step. At this point, it's identical between the LAN and the local loopback adapter, so you will want to follow the same steps. Now you want to go to My Network Places, View Network Connections, and you'll see here your LAN. And now we have the loopback adapter that I'm using, but if you're obviously on a LAN, you will use the connection that is the main connection. And then we want to go to Properties. And what we want to do here is Internet Protocol TCP/IP, and we want to set it so that it always uses the same IP address. So that way when you shut the computer off, it doesn't give it a new IP address every time. You want it to keep a static IP address. Otherwise the machines will fail to connect. And so use the following IP address, and then the one that I'll use, you can use whatever you want, but it's 192.168.10 and 50. Like that. Then for subnet mask, it'll automatically fill it as 255.255.255.0, and then you can leave the gateway blank, and the DNS server can be blank as well. We just need it to be a static IP address. And click OK on that. And once you have your IP, it says connected right there, and then you can click on status. This works in Windows 7 too. And then go to Properties, and you can get back to that same dialog, or go to the Support tab, and you'll see what your manually configured IP address is if you ever need to check it. So, again, there you can see your information. So now that we have an IP address, we can go back into our hMailServer, and then we want to change this address to that address. There we go, right there. And then I'll just copy it and then save it, and then don't restart it right away because we have to do this for all four, and change the IP address for all of them to the same one, and then restart on the final one, and it will tell you it restarted successfully. And with that, we are effectively configured. Again, there are a lot of other things that we can do. Here we can back up our settings. and restore from them. But generally this is all that we need. So for now I'll just minimize this. And then what we want to do is just get rid of all that. And we'll go to our mail client here. In my case I'm using Outlook 2002. It doesn't matter what your mail client is, it will work with anything. Go next here, just configure an email account. I'll use POP3, you can use IMAP as well. And then username, I'll put my name, doesn't matter. And then my email address is ben@benrlego.net. And then for the username, for the login information, you put the same thing. And then your password. And then for your incoming mail server, you want to put that same IP address from before, the IP address of the host machine. Now in this case I don't need to do anything advanced. If you have to have authentication for your SMTP server, you'll of course configure that. And if you had a different port, you can change the port and change the security configuration. In my case I don't need to. And next, and finish. And now I'm in my mail client. And now I can send mail. So I'll just use Outlook as the mail. I will email myself. And then send and receive. And there I go. I got my email. So that's basically configured right there. And just to show you that it does in fact work for mailing back and forth between addresses, here we can make another address on the same computer. We'll use a new domain. You can have effectively unlimited number of domains. I'll just do, it doesn't really matter, testsite.net. Just do that. Testsite.net. Make a new account. I'll do test1@testsite.net. And the password I'll make the same as the other one. Doesn't really matter in my case. And then with that I'll go to a different mail client. In my case I'll just do Outlook Express. And then I'll just name it at John Smith. And then test1@testsite. And then again for the IP address, same deal. And then finish. Do not import. And then I have a welcome email, but I will email myself. I'll email myself at that other address. Success. And now that I've done that, I can send and receive, and there you go. From John Smith, success, ASD. So that's basically all there is to it, and I can respond to that. Of course, you can configure your mail client to do whatever you want. And actually, there's one more note, because when I went to check my email, the response email that I had sent in Outlook Express, I realized that I had been banned. Because Outlook Express, apparently the way that it works, being so archaic, it sent too many connections, and it triggered an auto ban. Now we'll definitely want to disable that on our local server because again it doesn't really matter. I had changed the logon attempts when playing with it, but just disable the auto ban altogether, and if it does auto ban you'll see it in the IP ranges here. You will see that there was a banned IP address, and then you can just click remove and then unban the IP address, and then it will work just fine. But I just triggered that accidentally, but yeah, you can see I got the response emails. I can reply again and shoot back and forth. So now that I've configured that, I fixed it, you can see works just fine. So with that in mind, that is basically everything that you need to configure it. You can have as many domains as you want, as many emails as you want. It will impact the system performance. The more email addresses and domains that you have on the server. If I go to my task manager, you can see it at the moment. The hMailServer.exe, this is the actual service. It's only using about 15 megs of RAM, and it's using no CPU effectively, which is very good. And obviously that's only with 2 users logged in. But if you have a half-decent computer as the host machine, you can definitely get away with hosting it on an active machine that you use for other purposes. If not, you can put it on a machine with a web server or whatever you want it to be. If you have a hosted server for anything else, which is something I will get into here. But if you just wanted to configure the mail server itself and you're okay with coming into your computer that's the host to configure settings if you want to change them, then this is all you need to do. You are completely configured, and you can get out of the video if you want. But I want to show one more thing here. This might take a little bit, but I wanted to show you how you can configure this administrator as a website. So that way you can log in and administrate the server from a different machine and not have to access physically the host machine in order to change settings or add accounts or whatever the case may be. So to do that, you will need a web server, and it does come with the files that you need for it. You just need to have web server installed, and I'm using XAMPP web server, but any distribution of Apache will be the same as long as it has PHP installed. Now, of course, we want to make sure that our web server is already configured and turned on. How you can test that, of course, if you have a test page like an index.php type file or just some sort of page on your server. In my case, I have a localhost PHP info page here, like this. And as long as you can connect to the web server and have it set up, then you're good to go. I'll just be using a localhost for this, obviously. If you have a web server already configured, I'm not going to help you with that part, but it's easy enough to follow if you do. You'll know what to do. So go to your folder in program files or wherever you installed the hMailServer, and there's this folder PHP Web Admin, and you want to copy that, and then go to your web servers folder, and wherever the documents are, like your htdocs, I'll paste it in here. I already have it, but I'll replace it. And then you want to go into that folder, and you'll see a file called config-dist.php. You can either make a copy of this and rename it, or just rename this file to config.php, and then open that. In my case, I'm using Notepad++, and you'll see here, right here, we have a root URL, and you want to change this to be what your web page is, your domain that you are hosting the web server on locally. Which, obviously, if you have a DNS type server set up or anything, you'll already know what that is. In my case, I'll just use localhost. So I'll do localhost PHP web admin, and then I will change that as well to reflect the same thing. It doesn't really matter, but I'll change it there. And then we have localhost PHP web admin. We can save that and get rid of it. And then there's one other change we have to make, which is in the PHP of the server. Go to the PHP folder, and there is php.ini. This you can open with a anything, Notepad++ or Notepad, whatever, it doesn't really matter. And you want to do find. You want to search in the document for extension. And then you just have to keep going through the document. And then eventually you'll get to something like this. Here, right here, Windows extensions, and a list of extensions. Now we'll add to the top of this, we'll add a new extension, so extension equals, and we want it to be php_com_.net.dll, and then save the document. And then once that's configured, you have to go to your web server, and here in Apache, just start it again, so that way it picks up the changes that you made, and you can get rid of that. And then go to your web browser again, go to your address, do like http:// and then in my case localhost, and PHP web admin. And then this is just a basic login page here. You can do the same administrator account as you have set up on your main host machine, obviously, same password. And then you can see all of the status of the server. You can stop it remotely as well. You can see the uptime of the server, how many messages it's processed. It does show other things as well. And it shows open sessions. In my case, I have none because nothing's open on the mail server. But I can manage the domains. I can do everything that I can do from this page. I can just get rid of that, really. I can do everything in here as well. Like here, if I wanted to go back to the auto ban settings, you can see it's disabled. I can look at the IP ranges of the system. You can see here a little different layout, like some of these were all on the same page originally, now they're tabbed. But otherwise, it's basically all there. All accessed. You can change performance settings, whatever you want to do. Just kind of snoop around in the settings and see if there's anything in there that appeals to you. I can change the ports if I want to. But with that done, basically, that's it. You can now configure your mail server from a different machine over basically an internet connection locally. But with that done, basically everything is set up. We have our email. I can go fire off an email. Just send one to that test, and then it comes with John Smith. And then send mail. And go to Outlook. Yeah, right there. Boom. So there you go. That's how you set up an email server locally. And on this case, like I say, it was just a local host server. If you're connected to LAN, like I say, it's all the same steps, just instead of localhost, you'll be using the information for your host web server. So, with that said, let me know if there's anything else I can add in another video or in a comment for tutorials on this if it comes to Windows 7 or whatever. Differences in adding the ports to your exception list. I could do a short video on that. But I hope this was helpful, and we'll catch you guys later.